show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live podcast. And it's now.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to TFM Live, the official podcast of FullMountMMA.com. I am Brian Coyle. On the other line is Sean Stanley. And Sean, what in the world happened on Saturday? I wanted to podcast like Saturday at 3 a.m. because I had so many things to say and I didn't know how to say them. Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holm, and we have to walk back on everything that we've ever said regarding this fight, like ever.
Yeah,
because
100%, man, 100%.
They had the phrase in the media business, not as literal as it is today in the span of newspapers, calling "stop the presses," and I'm going to equate that to, usually, I'm going to give people an inside look at what we do. Usually when we're recapping the fight, you know, you have a basic outline of what you write, and you write that before the fight, and then you fill in the details later. And dumb me, assuming that we were going to have another Rousey win, I mean, she was a 14-1 favorite at one point, I had already filled the stuff in. I had to erase everything that I ever thought and everything that I ever written down because Holly Holm fought the perfect fight. Ronda Rousey fought the dumbest fight that I've ever seen. And Holly Holm is the new UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion of the world.
Yeah.
We got to start here. Sean, give me your initial thoughts. What were you thinking while watching this fight?
I was wondering why. I was actually wondering what her game plan was. She kind of seemed like, all right, she's going to instill her will again this fight. And then when that didn't happen, it seemed like she had no plan B. And then Holm just kept standing in front of her. I think we've talked about a little bit about it. She stood right in the front of a boxer, and Holm just jabbed her and just I thought, you know, if something crazy was to happen, it would be like maybe a decision. I never saw this brutal of a beating being given from Holm to Rousey.
I was stunned. I was stunned at the way both sides took place, like how both sides acted in this fight. And we'll get to Letourneau and Jędrzejczyk being a longer fight than I thought it would, and Mark Hunt knocking out Bigfoot Silva with a vicious punch in the temple, and then Robert Whittaker putting his name on the map against Uriah Hall. But let's just start from the beginning here. We've never seen Holly Holm look this good, period.
No.
In her previous fights, they were slogs. They weren't really interesting. They were decisions. She didn't look like this calculated, stone-cold boxing freak that we should have known with all of her experience was. But Jackson Wink, Greg Jackson, and Mike Winklejohn.
Yeah.
Are the best coaches in the world.
Yeah, her opponents before this were 5-3 combined, I think it was, when I wrote the article and I did the research. 5-3 combined, and they took her, you know, to decisions. I mean, nothing that led up to this fight said this is the way that this fight is going to go.
I mean, from every aspect of this, it was the perfect storm. Because, a lot of people are coming out and throwing Ronda Rousey under the bus, saying she wasn't that good. We should have seen this coming. Everything set up for this. Nobody saw this coming, all right? The only people that saw this coming are Jackson, Winklejohn, Jon Jones, apparently, who worked with Holly Holm, and Holly Holm and her family herself, because nobody was putting money on Holm.
Now, people were putting money on Holm because it was not the smartest bet you could make. If you wanted to put money and make money on this fight, you had to. But nobody rightfully said, hey, I'm going to take Holly Holm.
Yeah, Vegas took such a huge loss. Like, they couldn't even make it up, like, on an NFL Sunday, I read somewhere.
Yeah,
I heard Joe Rogan talking about his podcast about the Bellagio didn't have enough cash reserves in the vault to pay out immediately.
Well, you know, the guy that won the $2.5 million for the Royals won another $500,000 on this fight.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts. And it was absolutely incredible. And I'm gonna put some of the blame on Rousey, obviously, because I mean, regardless of where you were, she's arrogant. She acted like a wrestling heel essentially during this entire thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if that's what she wants to do, go for it. And she looked desperate midway through round one. Like, oh my God, I can't. I'm not hitting her. I can't flip her. What the hell is going to happen?
Yeah, I think after the first time she took her down and Holm got back up, I think that was where I think she realized, like, whoa, wait a minute. This is going to be a different kind of fight. And, yeah, it was a different kind of fight for everybody.
She looked lost. I'm going to put most of the blame on her training and her coaches.
You have to.
Edmund Tarverdian, what the hell was this guy doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is the problem here. And this is what I wanted to focus on the most. Because Rousey lost. Tyson lost. Ali lost. GSP lost. Anderson Silva lost.
Yep.
Everyone is going to lose.
Yep.
Nobody retires undefeated unless they fight chumps every time they go out and fight Floyd Mayweather. But the way it works is everyone loses. And whether or not it was the fact that Rousey has this schedule has overworked her. I mean, and she came out and said it. I mean, you don't want the life of a champion because it's not all it's cracked up to be, essentially, which Holly Holm is in for coming up. Yep. I mean, she said before the fight, the life of a champion, I think, isn't for everybody. And I think,
but also, it wasn't just the life of a champion, because unfortunately for Ronda Rousey, she took on the face of the UFC along, I think, with Conor McGregor as well. So not only was she doing her for the heavy, for the fights, for the title fight, she was doing stuff, preparing just UFC stuff in general. And also, though, I mean, but you got to figure, you got to have time to train. You got to train properly. You got to schedule to train. And there's hours in a day where you can get that training in, not to look the way she looked for this fight.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you mentioned the life of a champion. Holly Holm's going to be on. I mean, there's great. I'm going to pimp my own article. I'm going to toot my own horn here. But there's an article that's up on fullmountmma.com, which you can find. Holly Holm's in for a wild ride as champion. I put up basically saying what's next for Holly Holm, and you did something with Ronda Rousey as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Holly Holm's schedule. Today she was on Good Day Los Angeles, E! News, Extra with Mario Lopez, The Talk on CBS. Friday she's going to be on The Rich Eisen Show, the NFL on Fox, The Herd. Monday, Fox 5 New York, Rolling Stone, Wall Street Journal, Sports Illustrated, New York Times, Huffington Post, Seth Meyers, ESPN Car Wash on Tuesday. Like, this is what happens. The life of a champion isn't just about fighting. And whether or not that took a lot out of Rousey, plus the movies, and she wasn't able to train, is one thing. But the focus here is on Ronda Rousey is an Olympic judo bronze medalist. She is a submission specialist. She can break somebody's arm like that. Why in the hell is she putting her head on a center line for Holly Holm to essentially kick it off or punch it off?
Yeah.
Why is that the strategy? Why is she charging ahead? This isn't Betch Kohea, who was bred to be a mixed martial artist. That's what she was. That's what only she's done, which is rare. Like, we're starting to see fighters that don't have backgrounds and stuff, and are just MMA artists. And Betch Kohea, with all the pressure surrounding her, she folded like a chair.
Yeah.
Like, she broke. She was broken before the fight. You watch Holly Holm, she's jacked up, ready to go before the fight, and she's just ready. She's just so focused.
She came in with a game plan, and she was going to execute it, and she did.
Executed it perfectly.
Yeah.
She let Rousey charge at her, and it was just, she was rattled. She was bleeding out of her lip after the first time. There was bleeding out of her mouth. She busted her lip.
Yeah.
There was nothing. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And chalk it up to either Rousey herself being overzealous, which I doubt, because she's smart. She's been doing this. She knows what to do. Or you chalk it up to bad training, bad coaching. Yeah. I mean, we talked about Tarverdian being blasted by Ronda's mom.
Yep.
Like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect storm, and in front of 57,000 plus, the biggest crowd in UFC history. we had the biggest upset in UFC history. This beats Sarah GSP easily.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I kind of covered it in my article. It was like, I mean, with what's next for Rousey, I mean, obviously, you know, she's got her suspension and everything else. But, I mean, during this time, is it going to be for her to think about, you know, do I need to start looking at a new training camp?
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're that ill-prepared for a fight and you're coming in as the champion.
Yeah.
And you're that ill-prepared for this fight. I mean, either they thought Holm was a real slouch and never, you know, looked at her background as far as, you know, what she's really done and things like that. Or I don't understand, as you said, why are you standing center line with somebody that can knock you, you know, with a fist or a kick? I mean, you're asking for trouble. I mean, and especially I think once she realized that she was in trouble was, you know, like I said, tried to take her down and she just flung it down. And then she, right at the end of the first round, tried it again and she stuffed it and she landed in, you know, on the top position. And it was like, wow. And it just wasn't the same.
I mean, I'm just going to go back to this. The influence that Jackson Wink has on great fighters, when you look at Carlos Condit, Cowboy Cerrone, Holly Holm, Jon Jones, and then you look at Glendale Fighting Club, which is Ronda Rousey, a whole bunch of boxers, Jake Ellenberger, Travis Brown, Manny Gamburian. Like, that's not an elite gym.
No, not at all.
And if you're the biggest deal in the whole world, which Ronda Rousey was, and I mean, still is, what, like, a lot of people are throwing her like Jose Aldo saying, "Oh, she's never gonna fight again."
Yeah,
I call BS on that.
Yeah, I do.
Come on, let's be real here.
I don't think she goes out like that. There's no way.
No, she would never do something like that. Now you mentioned the medical suspension. She's 45 days. She cannot have any contact. In that time span, 60 days she can't fight, but after that time span she can. Now she has to be cleared with a negative head CT scan before, and I don't want people to get it twisted. We talked about this before we went on. Once she gets that CT scan and everything's all good, that 180-day suspension goes away. So she can start training after the 45 days of no contact, because her lip has to heal, which they took plastic surgery to instead of just a doctor sewing up. And I'd recommend listening to Joe Rogan's latest podcast. He had on Dana White, and he talked about it, how UFC fighters actually get a lot of their work done by plastic surgeons instead of doctors, because it means a lot. I won't go into it too much in detail, but it's a good listen. It's a long listen for sure. But this whole it was the perfect storm of everything, and I'm going to keep using perfect because that's what it was. Holm did everything by the book. She executed a game plan flawlessly, like you'd see Tom Brady orchestrate his offense down the field, like you'd see Steph Curry run an offense to get a shot off. Like, this was to a T the game plan that they wanted, and Rousey dropped right into the trap, and Holm annihilated her, like destroyed her. It wasn't even close.
No,
she was teeing off on her, and that deadly kick looked like something. I mean, I've seen people kick hard, and we talked about Edson Barbosa, who basically broke Paul Felder's ribs every time he kicked him back on that Dillashaw Barao card in July. But Holmes' kick, I mean, it was nasty.
Yeah, it hit her right in the jaw area. It's right in the jaw, and just well precise everything.
A lot of people were reporting the possibility of a broken jaw. It didn't happen on her part, thank God. But like, I wasn't surprised by that fact that something like that could have happened, because Holm was just Rousey wasn't defending herself. She couldn't execute her moves. She was rushed. Holm even took her down.
Yeah,
which I was astounded about.
Holm looked like she was 2 steps ahead every time Rousey was going to do anything.
And not only that, is it me or did her reach just look like insane during the fight?
Oh yeah, she was keeping her at bay. And then another thing too, I wanted to cover a little bit earlier. Some people were saying, I think it was Joe Rogan also, maybe on his podcast, was talking about, I think in the corner during the fight, in between rounds, they were saying, Rousey's corner was saying that she had won, like they felt that they were giving her like false advice, and that was part of the reason she went out the way she did for round two, which set her up for the obvious, the kick a couple seconds later.
It's like surrounding yourself with yes men and people that tell you how great you are never works.
No,
it just doesn't. It just never works. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, we don't have sources inside Rousey's camp, so we won't know this stuff. At least I don't. I don't know what you do on your spare time, Sean.
No, I'm not a fly on the wall at the Glendale Fight Club.
But, like, this was a complete multi-system organ failure from every single game plan, every single part of Rousey's camp. It looked like she didn't take the fight seriously enough. Maybe that's just the way it came off. I will never doubt Ronda Rousey's competitiveness or ability.
Yeah.
Period.
No.
But
it definitely didn't look like she prepared as well for this fight as others, or maybe she didn't. Maybe she prepared the same and just maybe she does that way with all the other, and she was able to dominate the way she did out of just being the athlete that she is, which couldn't happen this time. So, I mean, there's just so much what ifs right now.
The way I look at it is also the women's division. We see it now. There's talent there. There's more experience now. They're adding depth to this division, and Holly Holm is a great example of it. Like, maybe this division wasn't as weak as we thought. Maybe there are people. Maybe if Miesha Tate fought Ronda Rousey, maybe it would be closer than the past couple times. Maybe Betch Correia could fight Amanda Nunes and it'd be close. Like, there's the whole bunch. I mean, Kat Zingano, who basically just got caught and was stupid that one time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe there's more to this than that. And I think personally, go ahead.
No, I was saying, is it as much as everybody's getting better, or is Rousey kind of falling back to the pack because she's not, I mean, again, I'm not going to, question her, competitive or the way she fights, but, I mean, we see the way that the fight team is kind of all about Rousey. Yes, men, as you said. Yeah, maybe they've let her become complacent. Maybe this might be the fuel she needs to kind of maybe set the fire to her to step back up into the echelon that she was before. But maybe she came back to the pack instead of the pack coming up to her.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very intriguing setup. And Dana White basically said that there's going to be a rematch. I mean, I would be shocked if there wasn't.
I'd be even more shocked if anybody else gets a title shot before there is a rematch, unless there's unforeseen circumstances.
Unless Rousey doesn't fight before. I mean, this is UFC 200 set all over it.
Easy.
But if she doesn't fight for UFC 200, then I could easily see Miesha Tate or Amanda Nunes getting the first chomp at the bit if Rousey doesn't want it, which I doubt she does. But odds have already come out for the rematch. Pavada already put up potential odds. Rousey's still the favorite, minus 175. Holly Holm is plus 145. So she's still getting respect, at least in when it comes to the odds makers.
Yeah.
I find that right.
No, 100%. I think if she's, as we've said, I think if she's prepared
and she doesn't fight dumb.
I think she's a better all-around mixed martial artist than what Holly Holm is. But, I mean, if you stand and you go at her strength, you make Holly Holm look unbeatable.
Yeah, you played right into her strengths.
Yep.
And this wasn't like, oh, I want to knock this chick out. It's like she should have taken her to the ground and owned her on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And Holm fighting, I mean, I don't want to say, I like to compare this to the Anderson Silva Chris Weidman fight, because that aura of arrogance, whether it's true or not, over Rousey is similar to what Anderson Silva kind of did to Chris Weidman.
Mm-hmm.
But Silva straight up disrespected him.
Yeah.
Put his head out there and got
danced around and got nailed.
For lack of a word that I would usually say in this, he got popped in the face. And then it happened again. And now we have Weidman, who is completely dominant and still probably not respected enough, like he says after his fights. But I understand where he's coming from at this point. That Rockhold fight should be amazing. But that's besides the point. But the other kind of what I'm comparing Holm, not in her fighting style per se, but she's kind of had a similar game to what Conor McGregor wants to do. McGregor is strong when it comes to the kicks. He can punch. He can take a hit. McGregor will get away with just enough on the ground to be defensive enough to do things, to make moves on the ground so they don't get caught. They won't take the offense to the ground, but they'll be able to keep away and defend and then get it back to where they want. Holm, I felt, was kind of the same deal here. Is when she was on the ground, she was able to escape and make a move and get away and get out of that bad position. Because if you have that strength, you force it to go there by having that good defense on the other side. And usually, this was the perfect matchup of grappler striker. And depending on what side of the line you fall on, some people believe the strikers have the advantage. Some people have the grapplers have the advantage. It was clear the striker had a huge advantage. Like, Rousey's striking game was not even... Is it bad? Like, that's the question, because we all wanted to know about her stand-up Rebecca Correa's fight. She went out and knocked her out. Everyone's saying, oh, Rousey has great stand-up now. Does she? Does she have okay stand-up? Or did we watch a champion boxer?
She might have okay, but I think when you stand her up against somebody like Holly Holm, you know, who has probably above average boxing, it's going to make her look even worse than what she is. I think she's average at you know, stand-up and...
Average at best?
Average best. I mean, yeah, on her best day in this, I just think that with the way everything went down, it just made her look that much, you know, again, what was funny was she tried to, you know, it's one of those things where you accentuate your positives and hide your negatives, and Rousey went in there accentuating her negatives and hiding her positives.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. I think that's the best way to put it, because she played into her worst.
Yeah, and Holmes' best. I mean, it's like, she's a boxer. And I'm looking at some of the pictures now from the fight, and it's like she's just standing right in her face, like, here, try to hit me. And Holmes just hitting her. It's
boxing 101. Stay off the line, circle, move your head. Don't give somebody the target. It's something out of a video game or something out of Star Wars, when the targeting computer is kind of just like locking in on the middle. It's something out of Top Gun, like, don't be in the middle. Don't set it up. Yeah. It's as easy as that.
I mean, I think one thing to say, you know, if you don't want to get hit, use head movement. She just stood right there and was like, boop.
Her hands are down. Yeah, no head movement. It's like boxing 101. And this is why it was so shocking to me. Not that she lost, but the fact that she just fought the most... I was dumbstruck by it. I really was. She never in control. Holm repelled everything that was sent from Rousey her way. Holly Holm was tactical. She was patient. She was counterattacking. And she just lit her up. And now we have a new champion. And I think the UFC gets that more interesting now, because there's no Rousey fatigue anymore. It's, wow, let's see if Ronda Rousey can come back from this.
No, 100%. Now I guess the question would be, is if she does come back from this,
and
she loses one, I mean, that pretty much solidifies Holm. But what if she comes back and dominates Holm in the second fight? Will there be a third?
Oh, there'll be a third. There's always an opportunity to make a third fight. You make a third fight.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, if she dominates Holm this time, like Holm did her this time, I guess. Really, I mean, I guess it's turnabout fair play. It could just be,
Yeah.
But I mean, like, hopefully Rousey, gets back to training and look, I understand her being. I don't think a lot of her appearances is gonna change a whole lot because Holm's gonna do the champion thing now, but Rousey is still a big part of the UFC.
She's on the cover of UFC 2.
Yeah, of the game.
Which,
and
I mean,
else,
EA Sports' curse continues. But
yeah.
But you're absolutely right. But what will Rousey do? Like, how will this next 6 months to a year, what will this life of Ronda Rousey be? Because she's doing Roadhouse. Is she going to be at WrestleMania? Is she going to do all that? Is she going to be going through an ESPN car wash? Is she going to be doing all these media appearances? Or is she just going to go away? I mean, and we sometimes equate this stuff promotional-wise to wrestling on this show.
Yep.
But when somebody goes away for a while and then they show up and they look tougher and meaner, and it's like, wow, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like this is a sort of a thing. She said she was going to go away for a while to begin with.
Yep.
So,
well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head though too with the movie and the appearances. She's gonna have appearances now for the movie as well.
Yeah.
And different things like this. So it's not just because, again, she was doing the Champions appearances, the UFC appearances, then movie appearances, and then I'm sure there's charity appearances and whatever else she does with her time. Those appearances, not everything's gonna disappear off her plate here. So she's still gonna have. A lot of, I think, appearances and things like that. Plus, she's going to be filming movies, I'm sure, and whatever else she was going to do. So I don't think that her plate's going to get that much more empty than what it was before. So is she going to, again, it comes back to where I think that the fighting camp, especially the coach, has got to take control and be like, okay, look, I know you got to do these appearances. I know you got to do your movie. I know you got to do your TV. But we need to be training this time, and you need to set up the schedule, and you can't be a yes man anymore. If you are truly worried about her career and about her as a fighter, you need to say, hey, this is what we need to do to get you back to the top. Because if not, and like Herman said, she's just there to make you and your club a name and money, then keep doing what you're doing, because that is obviously showing right now.
And hell, I mean, Taverdian, reports came out that he filed for bankruptcy and didn't file any taxes for the past year. So I don't know what the hell is going on at Glendale Fighting Club right now. But like you mentioned, I mean, she needs help in different ways. I mean, as stupid as this sounded, Floyd Mayweather came out in a video and said, I want Rousey to hold her head up high and don't let this discourage you. If you need help as far as boxing, I'm here to help you. And I know the devil on your shoulder is better than the devil that you don't know. But, I mean, there needs to be a change here. And even if Mayweather was just talking crap at her after she's buried him for the past couple months.
Yeah, I think it was a subtle jab.
Oh, absolutely. One of Mayweather's subtle jabs that just scores points all over the place.
Yep.
But there needs to be a change here. And I don't know in what capacity there'll be a change, but something needs to happen. And this media attention is only going to get higher on her, because like you mentioned with all this stuff, and what's the first question that everyone's going to ask? It's going to be about this fight. It's not going to be about Roadhouse. It's not going to be her appearance at WrestleMania. It's not going to be about whatever. It's going to be about what happened.
Yep.
And we'll see if she's up for the challenge. It'll be very interesting coming forward. But I mean, it makes her career that more intriguing to me. At least I don't know how. Like, there was a way to make Ronda Rousey more interesting, and believe it or not, it was her losing made her career a lot more interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, that wasn't the only fight at UFC 193. If you asked anybody, it was the only fight. But there were other stuff going on, and we'll break down the undercard. Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Valerie Letourneau surprising me completely. We'll talk about Mark Hunt, and probably the end of Bigfoot Silva, I think, at this point. We'll talk about Robert Whittaker's fantastic performance. We'll throw in a little Conor McGregor news, because, McGregor's always in the news. And, his pay-per-view is next month. We need to start talking about UFC 194. And then there's a fight night this Saturday night, Neil Magny versus Kelvin Gastelum. Diego the Nightmare Sanchez, one of my favorite fighters of all time, is fighting on this card. So I want to get to that real quick at the end of the show, as well as Henry Cejudo, who could be a flyweight challenger coming up for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. We'll talk about that and more when we come back on TFM Live, the official podcast of FullMountMMA.com.
For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to the FullMountMMA.com. Now back to the TFM Live podcast. Here's Brian Coyle and Sean Stanley.
Welcome back, everybody, to TFM Live, the official podcast of the FullMountMMA.com. I'm Brian Coyle, joined along with Sean Stanley. Sean, let's talk about the rest of this card here for 193, because it was pretty good. It wasn't great, but I would say it was pretty good. The thing I want to talk about first, Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Valerie Letourneau. Holy shnikes, can Letourneau take some punishment?
Yeah.
I thought this would be out, easy, done with. Letourneau maybe won the first round, and it was all Joanna after it. But, man, that was a fun fight. And Jędrzejczyk couldn't put her away. And she broke her hand during the fight.
Both our articles were a little bit off on this one.
Yes, completely. Which is great, because it means we don't think the UFC is as lacking depth in the women's division as much as we thought, which is just good for the company in general.
Yeah.
Letourneau, she's going to get, she deserves to be ranked. Remember, she wasn't ranked before this fight. And she was kind of just thrown in like, oh, now she's the 7th ranked contender. Why? We don't know.
Yeah, but there's only 8 fighters.
Yeah. But now you got Namajunas versus Namajunas, Paige Van Zandt. You got Letourneau, you got Jędrzejczyk, you got Claudia Gadelha, who I might pick to beat Jędrzejczyk, which is basically against everything that says in my head, because I love Joanna violence. I love Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the way she fights. It's incredible to watch. She blew up Letourneau's face. Like, you look at those 2 black eyes, it was absolutely nuts. And you look at her leg, which took so much punishment, absolutely ridiculous amount, that she was able to keep going. So she gutted out one. But I was excited about watching that fight. Mark Hunt is just the best, man. Like, him knocking out Bigfoot Silva, everybody kind of saw coming, but given the fact that, I don't know, he looks like he's ready to go. The heavyweight division is so random, and he's got such a powerful punch. He's just a fun fighter to watch, and he basically kind of looked like, oh yeah, I could fight tomorrow, the way he came out. And he supposedly wants to fight in the December card, which I don't think there's any room, but there's always room for a Mark Hunt fight, right? Put him against Big Ben Rothwell, who is looking for a fight.
Yeah, he's trying to find a fight, somebody to fight, and
there it is.
Seem to get it now. There you go.
Mark Hunt, Ben Rothwell. Book it for whenever you want. It's right there for the taking for the UFC. And then the one I wanted to talk about the most, believe it or not, would not be Stefan Struve and Jared Rosholt, because that was ugly. It would be Robert Whittaker and Uriah Hall, because Robert Whittaker, this kid's a stud. He's really interesting to me at this stage of the game at middleweight. He's currently 9. He jumped 5 spots after beating Hall. Excuse me. And he completely dominated the fight. He was vicious. He was cunning. He was landing shots left and right. But watching Uriah Hall, the whole thing with him has been so much potential, right, for his entire career.
Yes.
There were moments where it's like, oh my God, he almost landed that. Oh my God, he almost landed that. And that's what Hall is. But Whittaker landed shots like that. He hit Hall. Hall said after the fight that his left eye, or one of his eyes, was completely closed after a shot he gave him to the head. So he was just kind of going off a feel and throwing kicks left and right. Whitaker's a dangerous fighter. And you put him against Michael Bisping, who he was supposed to fight. You put him against a Tim Kennedy. You put him against a Gegard Mousasi. Lyoto Machida. I don't want to shotgun this kid to the top because, I mean, you've got Weidman, Rockhold, Jacare Souza, Yoel Romero.
It's a crowded top.
Vitor Belfort. Anderson Silva. I mean, he's coming back, and you're probably going to get Belfort, Anderson Silva again, which, I mean, that'd be fun. But watch that name. Remember that name, because that could be a fun fighter down the line in this loaded 185-pound division. We're going to get to a couple things here. Dana White said, I laugh at GSP's comeback talk because he's not even close to hungry to coming back. It looked like he was kind of pumping up. The Freddie Roach quotes.
Yeah.
The 6-week training camp.
I was a little disappointed when I saw that.
Yeah, this is cold water on everything. White said, I highly doubt it's going to happen because GSP's been off too long, has tons of money. You don't do a 6-week camp to learn if you have the hunger. You either have it or you don't. Robbie Lawler knows it. He's hungry. He trains like an animal. You're either hungry and an animal or you're not. So Dana White's basically goading GSP here. Like, I don't think you're going to do it. Do it. Why not? You won't do it. So maybe GSP takes the bait. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see how it goes. I mean,
don't you think GSP's a little too veteran to fall for that? If he's going to fight, he's going to fight. If he's not, then
I mean, if I had to pick one guy not to fall for that, that would be George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
So
it's almost to me like he's already told Dana White that he probably wasn't going to fight, and then so now White's going to try to pressure him into fighting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another big name fighter. Yeah, remember Jon Jones? He's coming back. Like,
who's that? John who? John who?
You know, maybe the best pound for pound fighter in the world. He put up something on his Instagram, by the way, basically showing the transformation that Jones has gone under. He's absolutely like ripped. It's a 2-year difference. That was the 2013 version of Jones. I'd recommend pulling it up on his Instagram. Jon Jones doesn't look like a light heavyweight.
Not at
Jon
all.
Jones looks like he's about to fight Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Verdum. Jones mentioned in his Instagram post that he will be at his best for April 23rd, which is the date the UFC currently has booked at Madison Square Garden. If you put 2 plus 2, that equals 4, and that equals Jon Jones fighting at the Garden. Cormier has said, number 1, he wants some time off, and number 2, he doesn't want to fight Jon Jones at the Garden because let's be real here. We all know how that's probably going to turn out. So, I don't know what's going to happen here. Is Jon Jones going to... I mean, he wants his title belt back. Is he going to fight at heavyweight first just for some fun? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I am so intrigued by this Jon Jones comeback. Just, please, don't be stupid. Don't be dumb like he's been.
Wow,
stay away from the drugs.
Him at heavyweight, wow. That'd be something.
You have enough money to just get a driver everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't need to do this stupid stuff. Be the active person in your community, which he sounds like he's being, which is fantastic. Be smart. Grow up, which I hope he's been doing, because this is the best fighter in the world, and this dude can straight wreck people, and I want to see Cormier and Jones fight in the Garden. Number 1, because I could go to that show, and number 2, because I could go to that show. You. I am completely selfish here. I'm getting Rumble and Bader in Newark, which I'm going to try to go to as well. So I'm getting the light heavyweight division all over the place, hopefully, in the tri-state area. For number 3, I want to go to that show, because that could be, I mean, we talk about the UFC in Australia, it's the biggest crowd ever. You talk about UFC 194, which would probably be the best show ever, best card. It stays together. Please, for the love of God, stay healthy, everyone. But fighting at the Garden, this is a huge, huge deal. It's a BFD. Like, the Madison Square Garden has been home to so many great fights, and you finally get the UFC making their debut, and you get possibly a guy who could be the greatest fighter in UFC history for his comeback fight, undefeated. I can't wait for that. And then the final thing I wanted to hit on today, it's going to be a shorter podcast, and shorter, like, relatively speaking. Conor McGregor, he's doing things. Conor's always doing things. He's not fighting anybody from Game of Thrones this week. But he's apparently flashing the cash, because according to the Daily Mirror, McGregor just recently purchased a BMW i8 and a Mercedes-Benz for just a small amount. Sean, if you had to guess, what do you think Conor McGregor is spending on some vehicles here?
Let's see. Do we have a brand of car, or what model?
Yes, it's a BMW i8, and he also bought a Mercedes-Benz. So he bought two cars.
Two cars.
BMW and a Mercedes.
I'm gonna say upper 200s. 200,000.
Double that.
What?
Over $469,000 Conor McGregor spent on two new toys.
Do they drive themselves? Maybe you can give one to Jon Jones?
I mean, they're making those. They're making cars like that, apparently. Some of the new Teslas can drive themselves.
My goodness.
But remember, McGregor, he's a man that makes a lot of money.
Just a little bit.
And like he told Uriah Faber on the latest season of The Ultimate Fighter, when you bring in 60 to 70 million a show, you get little perks like that. The next fight I do is going to bring in 90 to 100 million. Of course, McGregor is probably exaggerating here, because when does Conor not exaggerate? I love watching McGregor talk.
I don't think McGregor's ever exaggerated.
Why not? There's a great video actually behind this. I don't know. On YouTube about McGregor and Faber as they're booking fights for the Tough 22 guys with Dana White. They get into like an argument about possibly fighting each other in Dublin, and basically McGregor said to Faber, like, "Yeah, I wanted to fight you, but Dana wouldn't let us fight." And then Faber looks like Dana White, like, "Really?" And White's like, "Well, yeah, I'm not gonna let you fight him yet. We got a whole bunch of other fights to go in." So it's a whole big deal. I can't wait for McGregor Aldo. I hope Jose Aldo shows up, because I mean, Chael Sonnen likes to ring the alarm bell better than anybody in this whole
That's what he does, landscape. Right? He's a talker.
Oh yeah, he was a talker before it was cool to talk. And by the way, anything that Sonnen says is still not cool to talk. But we're worried about Aldo. Right? Like it's a genuine fear to have, given the fact that he's so frail. He got hurt 18 days before the fight.
Yep.
He hasn't been heavily involved in this promotional process. It's just a little weird. I mean, the whole Frankie Edgar Chad Mendes thing is not only set up to be an awesome fight night before, but for Frankie to take that spot in a God forbid case. So I'm excited to see what McGregor's got coming up in this next month. I'm more excited to see Jose Aldo, because that means we get to see him, and then we get to see this fight, and it will be amazing. I'm just excited for this whole card, because we've been through this, but can we run down UFC 194 one more time, just to bask in the glory of probably the greatest and most loaded fight card in UFC history? Would that be something you're okay with, Sean?
I am very okay with that. Let's go ahead and let's do that right now.
Okay, because we're skipping the fact that, I mean, Neil Magny and Kelvin Gastelum are fighting this Saturday.
And
next Saturday,
your boy Sanchez too. Don't forget him.
Oh no, the nightmare. Clay Guida, Diego Sanchez is my favorite fight of all time. Yep. That's besides the point. Skipping Sage Northcutt, Paige Van Zandt on that Thursday, and McGregor, Frankie Edgar, and Chad Mendes that Friday. This is just This is the pay-per-view card. Because Uriah Faber and Frankie Saenz fight on the prelim card. Prelims.
Yep.
It's prelims.
Yeah.
Max Holloway, Jeremy Stevens, Damian Maia and Gunnar Nelson, Jacare Souza and Yoel Romero, Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold, which should headline its own pay-per-view, and then Aldo and McGregor. Like, really? Come on. Everyone just please stay healthy.
Yes, that's the thing, man. That's the thing right now. Healthy.
Just be okay.
Healthy.
Just be okay. That's all that matters. Anything else you want to talk about this week? Sean?
I think we pretty much nailed everything here. I'm looking at this little things here. Make sure nothing popped up out of the ordinary here today.
And I apologize to the listeners if they hear me sniffling. I have allergies that, decide to never go away when I live in the Northeast, and it's 60 degrees one day and then 35 degrees the next day. So I apologize. I can't live in sunny, beautiful South Florida like Sean does, who gets to enjoy that beautiful weather.
I live where others vacation.
Yes, this is true. And I've been there for a couple summers, but apparently summer's the worst time to be in South Florida.
Yeah, well, lately winter's been not a very good time to be here either. I mean, we had a cold front the other day. It got to 76.
Oh, that just sounds awful. 76 degrees.
It's a cold front.
Oh my goodness, that's just insane. So you could send in all your comments to Sean about how he lives the life that we all should live at SS Sports Talk on Twitter, because I want people blowing up your timeline for you acting
before I come in to the office, I hit the beach, so just so you know.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful. Awful. I take the train into New York City every day, and I look at the Atlantic Ocean as the fog rolls in, and the bleak cloudscapes that now descend upon New York City now that we're in November. It's just awful. So if you want to yell at Sean for living in a nice place, at SS Sports Talk for him, at BCoyle11 for me. If you want to relate to terrible weather, because I'll do that. If you want to yell about football, I'll do that too. And if you want to talk fights, I am always, always, always down to talk fights. And if you want to suggest something for the show, if you want to ask a question, please tweet at us at The Full Amount, at BCoyle11, at SS Sports Talk. We want to interact with you people that are reading. We want to know. We want to know more about you guys so we can cater our content to our audience. This is what we do. We got to give the people what they want, in the great words of Jalen Rose.
Yes,
we got to do it.
Yes. Preach, my brother, preach.
We got to. We absolutely got to. So, fight night card from Monterrey, Mexico. This Saturday coming up. That would be on Fox Sports 1. I recommend you watch it. Or if you don't, just watch Ricardo Lamas and Diego Sanchez, because you'll get a lesson in mixed martial arts from the nightmare. And keep it locked to the FullMountMMA.com, because we got plenty of stuff leading up to UFC 194. And who knows, maybe we'll write about something more shocking, because Holly Holm is now your new UFC women's bantamweight champ.
Yeah, you're still not used to saying that, are you?
I have to write it out. If you notice on the website, I write out women's bantamweight champion of the world. I still don't believe it. I don't get it. I can't. I'm stunned. But congrats to Holly Holm, because she was the best 135-pound mixed martial artist in the world that night. She deserved to win. She had the best coaching. She kicked ass, plain and simple.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see what's in the store next for our new champion, and what the future holds for that old champion, who stopped throwing shade on Ronda Rousey, people. All right?
Yeah. Because like you said before, everybody's lost.
Yeah. We can like everybody. All right? We don't have to pick sides. We can be like, oh, this is a great fight for both people. We don't have to say, oh, yeah, she's terrible now that she lost one fight.
Yeah, I just love how, like, a couple months ago it was, oh, her strike game is great. Now it's like she has no strike game.
Don't play Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
Take a look at the overarching picture.
Yep.
That's what we do at thefullmountmma.com, which you can find online at that website that I just mentioned, and at The Full Mount on Twitter. We'll have a new podcast next week, as always. So thank you for listening. For Sean, I'm Brian. We're out.